Breaking updates. Very important. Snow White, there's been an enormous amount of controversy surrounding Snow White, obviously.
I think it's fair to say that no one can stand the star of this movie.
Disney's new live-action remake of Snow White debuted this weekend, and it's an even bigger dud than anticipated.
Controversy has been dogging this movie since the very beginning. So much so that the Daily Wire, I think we played a major role in basically forcing Disney to go reshoot it. Well, it didn't help, apparently. Disney's Snow White was essentially a box office dud.
The reason we had Rachel Zegler on the docket is she's an asshole.
A lot of people don't like her. A lot of people don't like her either. She's got a big mouth. She talked trash about the original movie.
And now you better have a good reason to get people to the theaters, and this ain't it. The movie apparently is not very good. I haven't seen it yet. I would be shocked if it were. Again, the star, Rachel Zegler, is unbelievably charmless in public. Studios really need to go back to what they originally did, which was tell your stars to shut up and not say things, because no one is paying to hear your star say offensive things off the screen.
Disney is having its own problems. They're finally releasing the latest adaptation of Snow White, but they're scaling back the Hollywood premiere of the film. Kinsey, why is that?
Because Rachel Zegler is a PR nightmare.
She's not like the ideal choice for the lead role in Sweet Snow White.
Now, one thing that is already universally known at this point by the general public is the fact that Disney is in full-on damage control mode.
Every time she opens her mouth, it's crisis mode when it comes to Disney, having to backtrack. She talks about how this isn't a fairy tale about falling in love with the prince. This is a fairy tale about fighting your own battle.
I know this point has been made, but this truly is the worst casting maybe in the history of the film industry.
There are a lot of reasons you have to suspend disbelief when you watch a movie like Snow White. You know, there's magic, and there's talking forests and animals that act in human ways and such. But probably the biggest aspect of disbelief you have to suspend is the idea that Gal Gadot, as the wicked witch here, as the evil stepmother, is somehow less good looking than Rachel Zegler. Come on, gang. We ain't blind.
This is someone who is as entitled as, I don't need your business. You know what? Maybe Disney does. Maybe you're a tool, you're a pawn in this film. You didn't write it. You didn't direct it. You have nothing to do with the creation of Snow White. Right. You should shut up and do the job.
Now, one thing about Rachel Zegler is that we know that she's not helping at all one bit.
I understand that we're supposed to pretend that disabilities no longer exist or something, but we're not all blind. We can still see. I don't know if that mirror was broken.
Neither of them make any sense for their roles. We've already covered how Rachel Zegler is a terrible choice for Snow White. Gal Gadot, who plays the queen, the first problem is that she's the evil queen. The evil queen is supposed to be envious of Snow White's beauty, and that is just not believable. I cannot buy that Gal Gadot is angry that she's not as beautiful as Rachel Zegler. I cannot buy that.
There's a reason why the public has shifted. If you can't avoid this movie, you absolutely should, because it's absolute trash. I know some people like this movie. Some people are stupid. Oops.
Oh, man.
Hello, Disney, you're going to have to redo your film again, because this woman is a pig, and you fired Gina Carano for far less than this nonsense.
Has there been a film with worse casting than this? And I don't just mean the Snow White actress. Obviously, she's terrible, but both of them.
This is truly, she has to go. I'm sorry, Disney. She has to go.
Actually, here's something that might grab your interest right away. Word is traveling that Snow White has been dogged by so much turmoil that many observers think it's on track to be a major box office flop for Disney, especially since it's being hinted that the leading actor, Rachel Zegler, is unbelievably off-putting in the public eye. According to one insider, they are saying she stirred up problems by speaking ill of the classic version of Snow White, which rubbed plenty of fans the wrong way. Evidence is starting to point to the possibility that this controversy has followed. The project from day one, apparently prompting Disney to do reshoots.
Then they decided to cast Rachel Zegler, who is Hispanic, as Snow White. Now, again, you can cast people however you want to cast people. I really don't care. However, Snow White, in which the description of the character is skin as white as snow, lips red as the rose, right? I mean, there's an actual physical description of the part. Not my fault it's written that way. It ain't racist to write it that way. That's the description of the part. That's what it is. The name of the movie is Snow White, okay?
And it didn't pay off. Reports are surfacing that Disney's new Snow White is allegedly a disappointment at the box office, with opening returns that experts close to the studio are calling way below expectations. People familiar with the matter are implying this all ties back to Disney's own issues. They quietly pushed the film's Hollywood premiere in response to what some are describing as a PR meltdown tied to Rachel Zegler. Someone close to the production is suggesting The team just didn't provide enough of a lure to get folks into theater seats.
If I'm going to stand there 18 hours in a dress of an iconic Disney princess, I deserve to be paid for every hour that it is streamed on.
Behind the scenes, you guys know as well as I do that those executives like Spielberg are looking at that saying, Rachel Zegler can F right off.
They're also saying the film itself is receiving grim feedback. A few watchers said they'd be shocked if it turned out to be any good. There's been plenty of chatter that the star, Rachel Ziggler, lacks warmth when engaging with fans. And a source told us that movie studios might want to embrace old-style strategies, keep stars from saying things that ignite uproar off-screen. The insider implied that no one's buying a ticket to hear the star trash the original tale or attack. Audience members they supposedly need to woo.
It showed that the dwarves were not, in fact, dwarves in Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, because that would be offensive apparently to little people, so instead, they just made the dwarves normal-sized humans, which was idiotic, because that's not the story. Then they decided they couldn't actually cast, little people in these roles, so they decided to cast big people and then shrink them down using CGI, so it looks terrible.
This same contact indicated that Ziggler's approach seems entitled. Observers believe she has no hesitation showing disdain for people's nostalgia. Some industry voices say that maybe Disney cares about paying customers, but she apparently doesn't, given her willingness to mock the film's legacy. An expert who monitors cinematic PR fiascos believes her remarks have forced Disney to scramble for damage control every time she speaks. They're saying she fixates on the notion that the fairy tale is about forging your own path, not relying on a prince's help, even though the 1937 version didn't exactly focus on hardcore feminism. Many wonder if she's the right pick for a sweet Snow White.
The reason why Rachel Zegler sticks around is she's got a beautiful voice and she has some talent. So I think that certainly helps her because she is a PR nightmare. I don't know how anyone would hire her.
Evidence is emerging that Disney is now in crisis mode, having realized that Ziggler is not doing the project any favors. According to one analyst, Disney might have to replace her. The rumor among certain corners of Hollywood is that this could be the worst casting imaginable for a beloved character. Critics point out the film demands a suspension of disbelief, magical forests, animals acting human, but the biggest stretch might be expecting audiences to accept Gal Gadot as the wicked stepmother who's supposedly less attractive than Rachel. Ziggler, observers scoff that it's tough to pretend Gadot envies Ziggler's looks. They are saying neither performance quite suits the roles. People recall that Ziggler hasn't exactly won hearts as Snow White, and Gadot's portrayal of the evil queen isn't ringing true if she's meant to be jealous of her co-star's beauty. So folks have joked that maybe the magic mirror is cracked. Pundits are guessing Disney might have to do another round of fixes, reminding everyone they once let Gina Carano go over much smaller controversies. Some watchers suggest that if you can't dodge this movie, you should probably skip it anyway because, in their words, it's not worth your time. Others are labeling it a hot mess for sure. Oops, a quick greeting from CelebWrap, where we're painting a picture of a cherished classic, a star who seems indifferent, and a social commentator who detects a looming failure a mile off. Yes, that trifecta is what people are describing as the drama swirling around Disney's new Snow White, where they're saying Ben Shapiro apparently fired his opinions at Disney's doorstep after seeing Ziggler's casting. She's reportedly Hispanic, which some fans say they don't mind, but they note that the original tale mentions skin as white as snow and lips as red as a rose, words pinned down by the 1937 text. They argue it's not hateful to point out that's just how the story was written. Critics insist the film's name is Snow White for a reason, and they're leveling special attention on how Ziggler came across while taking on the role. Some watchers claim it was like she treated the classic story as an outdated chore. They say that if she's going to stand around in an iconic dress for hours on end, she doesn't mind letting it be known she expects top-dollar pay. Meanwhile, it's rumored that the original's charm, forest singing, the dwarf's delightful presence, has gone missing, replaced by confusion and a massive price tag. According to people who follow Disney's finances, the film's colossal cost is giving the studio's executives sleepless nights. One industry insider implies even giants like Spielberg are probably side-eyeing Ziggler, thinking she can forget about forging a lasting career if this fiasco is pinned on her.
I know that you've told me before that your version of Snow White is different, and it's more of a 2022 version of Snow White. What did you mean by that?
I mean, the original cartoon came out in 1937, and very evidently so. I was scared of the original cartoon. I think I watched it once and then I never picked it up again. never revisited Snow White again. So I watched it for the first time in probably 16, 17 years.
Hang on, because an insider walkthrough hints that this story has shifted from a promising reimagining into a case study for exactly how not to revive an 80-year-old treasure. The premise started with Disney deciding it was time to refresh Snow White, the pioneering full-length animated classic from the 1930s. That film is adored, so many believed it was a gutsy move to alter it. But Disney, known for revivals, pressed forward, casting Ziggler fresh off a successful musical. Reports from those involved say her singing talent is likely what made executives believe they could overlook her rumored PR difficulties. From the start, fans wondered if Disney would preserve the innocence at the heart of the old story. Then, the rumor mill churned out murmurs that the dwarfs weren't really dwarfs. Net chatter soared, with watchers exclaiming they couldn't believe the 7 original dwarfs weren't there. Instead, the film apparently featured human actors who were regular-sized, with the plan to shrink them via CGI. Many folks are calling it bizarre, especially because the dwarfs are central to the well-known title Snow White and the 7 Dwarfs. People are also saying Disney did this to avoid offending anyone, but ironically ended up offending everyone. Meanwhile, some wonder if the studio had a plan or was winging it.
It cost $270 million to make. $270 million. Disney has botched this Snow White movie every way it's possible to botch this Snow White movie. So you'll recall that originally the Snow White movie starring Rachel Zegler and Gal Gadot, you'll remember that film had a trailer so awful that Disney had to completely recut the movie.
And if that wasn't enough, watchers are pointing to a string of interviews where Ziggler basically made it known she found the 1937 film pretty old-fashioned. One conversation has her recalling she was spooked by the original cartoon as a kid and never watched it again. She implied it's a stale story from another era. That revelation left some fans scratching their heads. How do you sell the dream of Snow White if you're downplaying its source material? According to audience chatter, it's like hiring a host for a birthday bash who shows up announcing parties are a waste of time. Then there's the dwarfs' disappearance. The 1937 plot revolves around Snow White's bond with those 7 diminutive friends, each with distinct quirks. But apparently, the new spin replaced them with random magical beings who lack the heart, and backstory fans have cherished for decades. People on social platforms pointed out that the entire point is in the title. The dwarfs are integral. It's rumored that actor Peter Dinklage, well known among little person performers, was critical of this approach, questioning why Hollywood would shift from one supposed stereotype to something equally off-base. And don't forget, if you like a good cinematic breakdown, kindly hit the like and subscribe buttons, because that's basically how we keep this conversation rolling. Anyway, beyond that, fans suspect that the film might have lost its essence long before it hit theaters. Disney reportedly spent enormous sums, some say up to $270 million, on everything from CGI to marketing, yet somehow neglected the core, reassuring faithful viewers that the remake would honor its beloved roots. Early trailers showcased sweeping scenery instead of classic moments. Posters left folks scratching their heads. Word inside certain circles is that they recut the film after a poorly received preview, fueling expectations of a train wreck. As release day arrived, predictions floated that it might generate $50 million in its debut weekend, which is already a modest figure for a movie rumored to have cost $270 million total. But sources say even that estimate fell flat, hitting barely $43 million. Critics concluded that it was a big flop. Commentary suggests it won't regain its massive outlay, branding it one of Disney's priciest misfires. Negative buzz soared, with many listing reasons. No dwarfs, too much CGI, and a leading actor who, in the eyes of fans, kept insulting the original. Observations grew about how Ziggler sounded scornful of the 1937 version. She allegedly made comments referring to it as outdated, trivial, or even weird, leading fans to check out. Viewers declared it a case of a star alienating the very crowd they needed. Others say it wasn't just Ziggler's approach, it was also the dwarfs' fiasco, a story weighed down by misguided new elements, and a marketing campaign that many felt tiptoed around the actual narrative. All told, it looked like a creative meltdown. Amid all this, Disney execs apparently were floored by the backlash. One rumor contends they had no clue Ziggler's remarks would trigger such outrage. Some entertainment specialists say that's a major twist in our current era, where any interview snippet can go viral at light speed. Internally, it's rumored they considered last-minute changes or adjusted marketing to reduce the focus on the lead's commentary, but the damage was done. By the time it reached theaters, the hype was more of a comedic punchline. According to jokes floating around online, it was like a deflated balloon at a party. Skeptics also poke fun at Disney's creative stagnation, pointing out that the studio seems stuck revisiting old hits instead of taking risks on new stories. Some wonder why they keep returning to classics and rewriting them into polarizing blockbusters. But there might be a silver lining, according to a film historian who says Disney could learn from this fiasco, maybe recapturing the wonder that drew fans in the first place. Viewers aren't demanding perfection, just respect for the story that shaped their childhoods. This entire experience could be instructive for actors, too. When playing a legendary character, it helps to remember what made that role iconic and to speak warmly about it instead of tearing it down. People might not want over-the-top praise, but they do hope for courtesy toward a piece of film heritage. Those who fail to grasp that risk being the subject of unending memes and comedic roasts. In our digital age, the internet rarely forgets a public gaffe. So in the end, the box office figures disappointed, the stars suspected of driving fans away, and the creative decisions left longtime admirers missing Doc, Grumpy, and all the rest. It's turning into a cautionary tale for how good intentions can backfire if they ignore what people loved originally. Where do you land on this mess? Are Ziggler's remarks, as some believe, solely responsible for sinking the movie, or did the missing dwarfs and heavy CGI do it in? Would you have preferred a production faithful to the 1937 style, or did you happen to find enjoyment in the new attempt? Tell everyone your thoughts in the comment section, and be sure to hit the like button, subscribe, and ring that bell so you'll know about future cinematic catastrophes on the horizon. If Snow White's meltdown reveals anything, it's that even the biggest fairy tale can collapse if the classic magic is tossed aside. Thanks for reading, and stay connected, stay upbeat, and stay in the know with CelebWrap. And remember, your feedback keeps this conversation brewing.